Welcome to the Loyalty Builders podcast, where together with the top loyalty and product experts, we discuss how to maximize customer acquisition, engagement, and retention by using a loyalty engine. Building loyalty is complex, but with the right toolkit and market-proven knowledge, you will maximize the use of your products and services faster than learning from your own mistakes. Subscribe to our newsletter and twice a week get tried and tested tactics to build and improve customer loyalty. Hey everyone! This episode is truly special in a few ways. It's actually so special that we've teamed up with Hubert Świątkowski, our expert in fan engagement and loyalty in sports, in order to make the most of this episode. So this time, we're discussing building fan engagement for a love brand, a sports club. A football club that happens to be one of the most innovative companies I know. Can you guess which one it is? That's right, you guessed it. It's Club Brugge. Club Brugge aims to be Europe's most innovative, efficient and sustainable football company by creating value for its fans, partners, team and society. Driven by their no sweat, no glory attitude, strengthened by their togetherness and backed by their code of ethics, they want to win every day. And boy are they winning. Both in business and on the field, they work hard, they work smart and work together. And that brings amazing results. The goal of this episode is to show you how to align a business around customer experience and use technology to innovate and constantly improve results. Joining us together is Thomas Rypens, Direct-to-Consumer Director at Club Brugge. With experience in web development, digital product design, brand design and project management, he's built a solid foundation that helps him connect the dots from every corner of the creative environment at the club and lead innovation towards fan centricity and profitability. So without further ado, here's Thomas. Thomas, it's great to have you on the show. If you could just start perhaps by sharing the vision of fan engagement at Club Brugge, because this is a huge part of our conversation today. So if we could just, start generally with the vision.
Yeah, it's actually quite a difficult topic in my opinion, because in a sense, if you're a love brand, which I think 99% of all football clubs are, the club simply is from the fans. And I think in that sense, everything you try and everything you do when it comes to engagement is something they need to approve. So in that sense, it's very important to understand what they want, what their needs are. And that's not so easy to define for 500,000 people in our case. From a Nielsen study before, we know that we have around 1.2 million fans who have affinity for the club in the country. We don't have a very international strategy when it comes to that, because at this point, Bruges is a challenger in Europe and not per se like a bigger club already. So what it actually means is since I came in the club, but also already before, fan data plays a very big role in what we do. I think in the last 2 years, we're really shifting towards fan centricity and customer centricity, and really understanding the needs from the fans and then adapting to that. And then already now in some of the examples we'll probably talk about later as well, you see engagement does increase if you listen to fans.
Oh yeah, cool. I mean, it's great that you're mentioning data. It's going to be definitely on our list. This is something to explore, and this is something that, a lot of organizations, they focus on it, but still, struggle to get the right insights to do it right. So I'm pretty sure that you could, help us out a bit and share your perspective. And perhaps we could also, discuss briefly the sort of in marketing, we use customer journey and customer life cycle, as a term. And in case of Club Brugge, this is brilliant, because when you go on a website, you can clearly see that you start with 0 years old up to you have the full life cycle covered. So if you could just give us a bit of perspective on this particular area, how do you approach membership? How do you segment your audience? And how do you make sure that your fans stay engaged, from as soon as possible till the very end.
Yeah, I think more and more we're trying to step away from what you would typically call marketing campaigns. Obviously, we're doing marketing campaigns for visibility or your fan engagement, etc. But they sometimes are one shots at what you want to do at that point. So what we're trying to do is really look at the added value that we see in our data again, and try to productize these things. And that's what you've seen on the website is some of the things that we feel that fans value have been put into a product or a service, being a membership in this case. So we've actually defined for ourselves what do parents from 0 to 6 years old fans, because they don't decide for themselves what would they like in that type of membership. We make it affordable, and actually already by getting the welcome gift, you already feel that you got everything out of that cost. It's the same for 7 to 12, and now for next year we will be launching the 13 to 17-year-old group, which is still quite a big group, as you know. It's a 4-year age gap difference in that group when they're different, still interested in different things. But we don't have the ambition per se to have 20 memberships as well. So it needs to be clear as a product. So for us, where I think the journey started to understand the fans, we go back, let's say 4 or 5 years with our CTO, Jannes Labara, who has done a tremendous job when it comes to the capturing of the data. And I think a lot of clubs are already sitting at some data, but I think we can be proud to say that we have a 360-degree view on what our fans are doing on a transactional level. That's important. There's different flows coming together in an API first system. I'll let him do the technical debate on that, but for us on the business side, it's very useful to really see that we have everything hooked to a fan from everything that he's ordered or has done at the club. So if you not only ask him, but you can also see in the data what he's doing from the heart, it lets you make conclusions to what you want to have in a membership, for example. So customer journey for us is something that we try and look at from a transaction level, because that was the first step. And more also in the future, in the coming year as well, we'll definitely be looking at the behavioral part as well, because not everything needs to be conscious. Sometimes you also need to reward someone for a subconscious positive thing he's done.
Brilliant. So I guess this is a sort of like a transfer from transactional to emotional base, right? To just like get that's.
Yeah, and also the customer journey is quite central in our organization. I think for the departments that I'm running in D2C, everyone has its own customer journey, because you obviously still want to have a focus on the expertise of, for example, merchandise. You want to have a head of ticketing focusing on the ticketing journey. But in the end, I think that the beauty of the group coming together is the fact that these journeys are interweaved and they meet each other constantly throughout a season. And that's these things we're trying to blend once in a while without really losing the expertise eye on that as well.
Brilliant. So as you said, it's like the challenge is actually to make sure that you do have all those data points and that you can actually connect the dots, right? And then that you do have this, as you said, 360 view. So if you could maybe give us a glimpse into like what sort of data sources do you use every day? You know, what is crucial in order to build this 360 view? What are the sources of key data in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it has two ways of looking at it. For one, it's a match day. If you look at a match day, we have in the systems or in the data lake that we have, let's say 1 hour after the game, every data point gets aggregated into this bigger database, which rolls out a report. So after every game, an hour after it or 2 hours after it, people who need to have it in their email, they have it. And each and every other week, that's when we try to look at obviously revenue and profit, but also some of the details of ticketing, like how many tickets have we sold, how many people attended, how many people released their seat, how many seats did we resell, and so on. But that's the same for food and beverage. How many beers or drinks did we sell? Merchandise as well. So that one big report really gives us an overview of what we've done for that game and how it compares to the average of the competition of this season and also the one before. And it's something that I take close to heart in the sense that every Monday morning, if we had played a game at home, I take my 2-3 hours time to really go through this report. And if you do that consistently, that's when you start to see patterns of this. And when you really start to understand, okay, if it's sunny and it's a Saturday afternoon, people might attend more potentially than they would on a Sunday evening at 9 when it's raining, which obviously makes sense, but the data also proves it. That is, I think, one part, so the match day, and we're looking at that very consistently. On the other hand, you obviously have the things in between, the road towards games, the road throughout the season, both on European games, both on cup level, both on games. And then there's the marketing part in between, the click rates, the open rates, etc., which is in the clutter that you see in the communications these days. It's not always easy to find or to segment. Well, segment it's fine, but it's actually finding the right touch points at the right time for the right person. That is something that we are consistently trying to change and test as well. There's a lot of A/B testing going on there too. But I think data for me is one of the things that is a sub-pillar, which isn't per se on the very top. Like, it's not that we are shooting our data to everyone and everywhere outdoors. For me, it's a bottom layer, which we are using in the design thinking methodology that is very, very much hitting ground, let's say, at Club Brugge. Because what we were just discussing, the fact that you would productize things or do service design, it all comes down to, is it feasible? Is it desirable? Is it viable? And if it doesn't hit, it's not something that we then tend to do. We do try and have concepts or even minimum viable products that we try and build and or even design, and then put this to a test or a validation by fans. But then if it feels that we're not able to build this within a decent amount of budget, or the fans simply don't see this as desirable, then why even try and build it? But we use the data to understand whether or not this is something we should offer to our fans. So it's a part of it, it's not the only decision.
So sometimes it might be just like a starting point. So you start with the data, you have some certain insight, and then based on that, you build A/B tests, and you always verify it with fans if it resonates or not.
Exactly. And also in the match day reports that we were just discussing, you also see these effects coming in. If you've launched something which you hope and has been a good experiment, for example, then you launch it into production, and then week after week you're able to look at match reports and you see people, to give you one example, do come in a bit faster, so that we are able to reduce the queues, then you know that experiment has worked, and you might put this into your offering.
Brilliant. I'm actually, I really love this idea of building some MVP and testing it out, and then if it actually works in reality, it means that okay, let's just go full force on it, right? So if you could give us maybe any idea for such an A/B test that later on proved to be working and actually was good enough incentive to people come maybe 20 minutes earlier and
well, I'll give you one that made a difference, and I'll give you one that didn't per se work, because that's also part of design thinking. Some things fail is not a big word, but or fail is a big word, but it's some do have more success than others. I think one that for us really, really made a difference this year is that I gave this example already before, but we have one shop which is outside of the stadium. We also have one in the city, but around the stadium on match days, it's one shop, let's say, and it's not a huge one. It's rather small. So what you see an hour before the game, the queues start to pile up, and in the shop it's getting busy. We need to put guards outside to do the arrangement of the fans there. So at a certain point, we were thinking that what if we would look at some of our transactions and some of the fan flows that we see around the stadium, because we know which entries are popular and which are less, comparing to the parking spots, etc. And actually, by putting these together and understanding that a fan that sits on seats Z, to name you something, we know that he will probably come in through that gate. So we actually went on to see, does that assumption, is that validated? and then also understand that where does he do his first top up of his cart, does he get his beer, where does he get his burger, and actually for us made this kind of a flow where we see that most fans were passing by. So at that time we had the idea of what if we would put down extra match day shop units, which are smaller but also high end, tailored, and we put them around one of these hotspots around the stadium and really see whether or not fans would then skip the busy shop but still try and find that one scarf or a quick shirt or a cap, or like very impulse buys, if you know what I mean. Things that shouldn't per se have to be tried on, etc. But really, like a cap is something you like, you buy it, and so on. And that's something we've put down 3 of these units throughout this season to understand. And we've even moved them around because one location didn't seem to work that well. So that's something that we've done with the match day units, and the results were quite astonishing. Even though it was not a massive revenue thing on its own, you just saw that the pressure on the shop lowered a little bit. You saw that people in the match day units were comfortably shopping and getting that final thing 10 minutes before the game without having the stress to go to the game. But we did see a lot of very specific products do better, because what we also try to do with these match day shops, because they don't have a huge stock, we try and shift the products around. So based on the opponent, based on the weather, based on the time of the game, we know that there will be more kids in the stadium, so we put more kid stuff in. If it's sunny, it might be sunglasses, and obviously these things sell better if you adapt, and that has tremendous results at this point. So that's a good idea.
Sure.
That was a good result.
Thank you so much for sharing. And actually, it also like gives you this very cool perspective of like being agile and just moving around a bit, right? And then still, as you said, like data is crucial here. And also, as I believe, like the business result is also solid. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And then the other example I had is what we saw in the data last year is that, and again, that makes sense, but if a fan would come to a game plus 30 minutes before the game starts, you see that he would spend around €4 more per game than if he would come in the last 15 minutes, because obviously he has more time to buy, but again, the data created a validation. So what we were actually thinking that if we could try and reward that behavior by letting them come faster and not be around the stadium, but in the stadium already, we would want to reward that by, for example, giving up until 30 minutes before the game, every transaction or every consumption that you would do, you would get 60 cents cash back in return. So at Bruges now, you pay €3.10 for one beer, to name you one thing. If you would order that beer within the hour before the game, it would only cost you $2.50. Well, it would cost you $3.10, but in your account you would get parts of the money back. What we initially expected is, or at least it was again an assumption, is that some people, maybe families, would even come a bit sooner because they would know they would even earn a bit back if they would be sooner. They didn't have to wait as much, and so on. And looking at the data now, not a huge difference. So let's say 3-4% of fans come in a bit faster, but it's not that we're seeing massive results to smaller queues to come in to enter the stadium. So that is that's something that we've tested and didn't per se worked, and we're still defining whether or not this is staying in or not. So yeah.
Sure. But it's like, I really thank you so much for sharing that. And it just like shows that you still follow, the same methodology, and obviously some of the hypotheses will not be working, but that's totally fine because still you're learning, right? You're learning a lot. And I'm really curious now why it's not, like why you do not observe those like huge differences here in this area, because everything you said, like the whole, like, hypothesis makes total sense.
Because probably it could be a communication thing, but it could also be a behavioral thing. For example, if it's good weather, what we see, we're very close to the seaside. Fans tend to stay long at the seaside with family and friends and drink at the bars there, and only just jump in 10 minutes before because that's their day. So it's very difficult to really understand all groups, because you also have fans who go to that same bar for 30 years already, and by us giving 60 cents back, it wouldn't change their minds to simply go to that bar. So that is something that we try and see. And for families, it did probably make a difference. I don't know the exact demographic distinction there, but it was not like a complete movement of fans that did it differently. But we're trying to adapt and learn from that.
Sure. No, definitely, the methodology sounds perfect. Like, this is the way to go. And this is actually, it just shows that you are constantly in connection with your fans, and you are, like observing and adapting, testing out. That's really great. Now I wanted to switch a bit to technology, because, like a big part of what we do is technology, right? If you could perhaps like walk us through the tech that you use, like, what is required actually in order to build such a great tech stack that gives you this like 360 view, of the fan.
I think one of the things that has been very crucial for us since the last 6 years is the integration of the SSO. So really having a one fan account which works on all of our touch points. And I'm still quite surprised to see and learn how many clubs don't per se move into that direction. Sometimes smaller clubs, because they feel that would be a big chunk of work, or I don't know, but it actually lowers the amount of work, because you're basically integrating different touch points all together. And that for us has made it very clearly. We've been able to deduplicate some of the records we had in our database and really bring all of it together after one big massive cleanup. So that has been big. When it comes to tech, obviously we're look also on the front end side of things. We are looking at some CDPs and to really understand some of the fans that we don't know yet. We do track already some of the things that they're doing on our website or membership page and so on, to really try and lure them in that's not a very good word, but you know what I mean. To try and get them to make an account. Obviously at Brugge you can make your own free account. So the SSO, we're doing that with a partner. I think the data stack itself is something that we initially did also with an external partner, but due to the I say white label part of that and companies trying to really do that for a massive amount of clubs, we felt it wasn't going fast enough or too tailored enough for us. So that's why we decided to pull that in ourselves with some of our developers. And actually now it's really like click and play. If we have a CDP which doesn't really feel good to us, then we click it out again. It's the same with email marketing. We had a different tool before. Now we're in Active Campaign, and then trying to do our segmentation from the data lake to Active Campaign integrated as well. So that's also going quite well. I think on a transactional level and also on the access level, it's been a partner before who was running both of them. So if you buy online at the ticketing shop, obviously you have your ticket, which is then linked to our access provider as well. I think in the past, what we had and what we are changing this now towards the next season, because we've done this RFP at the beginning of the season to change our cashless system and our access system. So we're introducing a few new partners. But there before we had this membership card. And this membership card both let you in the stadium, so you could NFC scan it, but it also served as an NFC scanner for beverages. So it was actually a closed loop payment system where you need to top up the card. And this had its benefits over the last years, because data-wise, this obviously, as the loop was closed, this also created 100% insights for us in the transaction of fans. So we were able to bring that in the data lake as well. Next year, we will be opening this up. We're going to go for a hybrid loop. So fans will still be able to have the loyalty card, and they will also still get their cash back. But we will also, for convenience reasons, open up with regular bank cards as well. Yeah.
I guess that this also like allows you to run some cool A/B testing and just see what happens here, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. So you've mentioned, your development team, everything you've said so far. It just means that you also are really innovative when it comes to technology, and you want to be flexible, as I'm hearing it. So I wanted to ask you about the sort of like a tip, or what would be your approach towards building a development team, and also making sure that the technology that you're building, that you're using, is opening you up towards innovation and is not limiting you.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. It's also a big one. And I think it's definitely in football, a lot of clubs are struggling with this, because I think a lot of the teams I know are quite FTE strapped. They're quite lean and mean, let's say. It's even though we're the biggest in Belgium when it comes to the amount of people we have in the club, it is still lean and mean. So in that sense, you need to make sure that you don't only do the operational part, only do the game and the next game and the game after that, because that's not, then you're not innovative at that point. So what we've done over last year, it has been a bit of an evolution. At a certain point, we've decided to start Club Media House, which was our first internalization of resources and expertise. This is mainly a unit which we use for production, video production, graphic design, copywriting, etc., which has all been every campaign we do, aside from some of the very big ones, we do internally with that team. Let's say that next to that team, we've now defined that for the D2C area, we have products and services. That's what we call them now, which would be ticketing, merchandising, food and beverage, events, the typical things you would expect in D2C expertise. But since this year, we've also added a second expertise team, which is our customer experience team. And within that team, we have a few type of profiles. There's data analysts in there who really look at the business data and provide us with reporting and so on. There's an innovation team and a digital team, which is not a super big team, but dedicated people who look at and then who also know the methodologies that we want to put out on the floor. Digital team who works together with external digital partners, both on product design and on digital development. That's not something we've pulled internally at this point. We do have developments, but that development is really API-driven development and data development. And then also in that same customer experience team is the marketing team, because I really wanted to have them very close to really define the go-to-market of some of the products that we are defining in the innovation team, together with products and services. And that has been, I feel, quite difficult, not only externally, but mainly internally, really for the organization to understand that there is this body inside this organization who is really looking at trends, etc. And even though some of our people really have to organize yet another massive event of 28K people every other week, there are people who run around at the stadium and have their eyes open to look at some of the UX flaws that we might see, brings them to the table at these recurring meetings to then try and build propositions, again, desirability, feasibility, viability, to then discuss it with the responsible persons for a service. So could be the innovation guy thinking of a new subscription model for ticketing, to name you one thing, but then that always goes hand in hand with the responsible for ticketing.
Sure. Wow. I mean, it's so cool, and now I understand, the why you are so successful, because like the way you operate, the way you arrange those things, right? It just like gives me the sort of like a feeling that definitely you are very selective when it comes to like, allocating your resources. And everything you've said, it just like also creates this sort of like a feedback loop that, everybody is learning from everyone else. And then like you are setting yourself up towards like those incremental changes, which is so inspiring.
Well, that's what we try to do. But just like with everything, it's also for us, it's a bit of a learning process. It is quite new. We're doing this for 2 to 3 years now. And probably at this point, not every fan will feel the fan centricity just yet, because every fan is also very, very different. And we all know that being a fan of a club is costing quite some money for families these days. Also with inflation and everything, the prices has gone up and so on, which is not a fun thing to do, because that's always a discussion, a price increase, for example, for a fan. You can do whatever qualitative or quantitative research with them and understand their needs. Whenever it's price, it's a sensitive topic. So in that sense, it's a work in progress to constantly balance the commercial part next to the fan experience. So that's something that at least in my role, I try to have in mind each and every time. I don't know if I can put an example to that as well. But one thing that we have been doing over the last year, and the results also just came in, because in Belgium we have a regular season, and after it you have playoffs. What we've launched to our fans, because last year we had quite a difficult season when it comes to the sports results. The Champions League was fine, but still, let's say the domestic competition was more difficult. We saw that the attendance was dropping towards October, November, simply because the results weren't doing that well. So we're actually thinking, like, what can we do to have our fans who already paid quite some money to be in the stadium, to simply care of them being there, or at least making sure that someone else can go in their place if they're not feeling for it, or if they're not able to make it, etc. So what we then try to do is, or you can do yet another campaign, say, come to the stadium and make this a marketing campaign. We've actually, again, tried to productize this. So what we've done is we started Club ID Gold, which is the evolution of Club ID. And Club ID Gold is something that a fan can obtain as a membership only by doing something, but not by buying something, which actually, there's no fan who can purchase this membership. You can only earn it. And how does he do it? If a fan in the regular competition comes to 90% of the games, so in our case, that was 13 out of 15 games. So he had 2 misses he might have. But once he had 3, he was out of the gold system set, so to speak. So if every week he would come, the ticket would scan, he would get a streak, which we also visualized in the app, so he could follow his streak every other week to see if he was still in the race. If he wasn't able to make it, he had up until 40 hours before the game to release his seat, so that we would be able to resell the seat and then have a fuller stadium yet again. So that was a test. It's also a membership that we haven't seen around. It's something that we came up with ourselves. And now the regular competition is done, and what we're seeing is that 13,600 season ticket holders from the 21,400 that we have are going to become gold member next season. And obviously there's a few rewards that come with that, and that talks loyalty, obviously. There's a few things, and it's not massive, but for them it does mean a lot, we see. So for one, everyone who became gold will have a 5% cashback on their accounts based on their bought season ticket. So already for them, that feels like a reduction on the season ticket. You will get a quite exclusive gold card, which for some fans really has that very unique feeling of being part of a group, of something that they obtained themselves and didn't pay. There's going to be birthday drinks included, and then there will be the opportunity to win some of the most unique experiences, like give a kickoff of a game, have a sideline experience, be part of a press conference, things like a normal fan wouldn't be able to access. That would be part of the goal. And I think what we've seen also in the feedback is that fans just appreciate the fact that this is non-purchasable. And we didn't ask a very tedious task. They didn't have to do crazy things. It was simply come or sell or resell your ticket, and that kind of worked. Yeah.
Brilliant example. Thank you for sharing that. And this is what we probably would describe as a proper fan engagement. It means that you need to actively do something, right? And then you also have this something special planned for those who are regulars, most loyal, right? Are present. So I'm loving it. I'm pretty sure that it will be inspiring, not only for me but also for our audience. So I do have quite a few questions, but because we are a bit pressed, and we have prepared with Hubert this episode so that both of us have the opportunity to talk to you. So now I'm just Hubert, I'm giving the mic all to you, and now if you could just ask your questions. Amazing. This is what happens when you build your brand around the values of work hard, work smart, work together. We've divided our discussion into 2 parts, so if you want to learn more about measuring success, using technology to personalize fan engagement, and the role of leadership in driving change, carry on to the next episode. But for now, let's wrap up with a few action steps. If you enjoyed this episode, help us grow by leaving a positive review. Share your thoughts with us using the Q&A feature or by sending an email to podcast@openloyalty.io. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for more valuable content related to the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. The Loyalty Builders podcast is brought to you by the team at Open Loyalty, an API-first loyalty engine that allows you to implement loyalty and gamification features into your tech stack faster than developing them from scratch.